They tell you to stay positive. They tell you to dream big, to manifest, to believe in yourself. They flood your ears with hollow slogans, good vibes only. Think happy thoughts. The best is yet to come. And yet, look around. Anxiety spreads like wildfire. Depression crushes entire generations. Suicide rates climb while the cult of optimism shouts louder than ever. Do you not see the contradiction? Hope has become poison. Optimism has become the mask of despair. And one man saw this long before the world was drowning in it. Arthur Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer's cure is not light, not comfort, not blind positivity. It is darkness. It is pessimism. He told us that life itself is suffering, that desire is endless hunger, that happiness is nothing but the temporary relief from pain. He said the human condition is tragic at its core, that existence itself is a wound. And the herd recoiled. They mocked him as bitter, accused him of despair, dismissed him as irrelevant. But here is the paradox. Schopenhauer's pessimism is not poison, it is medicine. It is the dark cure we need. Because when you see life as it truly is, without the sugar of optimism, something strange happens. You stop expecting it to deliver what it cannot. You stop chasing the illusions that leave you empty. You stop hating yourself for being unhappy in a world that promised joy. Pessimism saves you by killing the lie that you were ever meant to be happy. Schopenhauer told us that life is governed by the will, a blind, irrational force that drives all beings to strive, to desire, to hunger, without end. You eat, you are hungry again. You love, you desire again. You succeed, you want more. The will never rests. It torments you with endless longing and only gives you brief moments of relief when desire is temporarily satisfied. But satisfaction never lasts. The hunger returns, the wheel turns, and the suffering continues. This, he said, is the true structure of existence. Most people cannot face this. They cover it with optimism, with religion, with consumerism. They tell themselves life has meaning, that suffering is temporary, that the future will be brighter. They inject themselves with hope, like addicts needing a fix. But reality always breaks through, and the optimism collapses into despair. Schopenhauer's dark cure is to stop pretending, to look at life directly, without illusions, and to accept the wound for what it is. And strangely, this acceptance brings a strange kind of peace. When you stop expecting life to make you happy, you stop being angry when it doesn't. When you stop demanding constant joy, you start to appreciate the small reliefs, the brief silences of suffering. When you stop believing in the fairy tale of eternal progress, you stop feeling betrayed by reality. Schopenhauer's pessimism frees you, not from pain, but from the false hope that multiplies pain. This is why he despised optimism. He called it childish, dishonest, dangerous. He saw optimism not as strength, but as denial. And if you look at the world today, was he not right? The cult of positivity tells you to smile while you drown, to keep manifesting while you starve, to chant affirmations while the abyss swallows you. Schopenhauer's cure is brutal, but it is honest. Stop lying. Admit that suffering is the rule, not the exception. And in that honesty lies sanity. Even love, he warned, is not what it seems. You think you are choosing your partner for happiness, but in truth, it is the will of life manipulating you to reproduce. Desire enslaves you, blinds you, consumes you, not for your joy, but for the continuation of the species. You are not free in love. You are a puppet of the will. Schopenhauer's pessimism strips even romance of its illusions, showing you the chains beneath the roses. And though this truth hurts, it liberates. Because once you see the machinery, you stop expecting love to save you. But Schopenhauer was not all despair. Beneath his darkness lies the cure. He said art, philosophy, and compassion offer temporary escape from the will. When you contemplate beauty, when you lose yourself in music, When you reflect on the tragic condition of existence, you step outside the wheel for a moment. You silence the hunger. You taste freedom, however brief. Pessimism does not end suffering, but it teaches you where to find relief, where to find clarity, where to find truth. Do you see now why his pessimism saves? It saves you from illusions that betray you. It saves you from the poison of optimism. It saves you from blaming yourself for a happiness you were never promised. And in doing so, it gives you strength. Not the shallow strength of positive vibes, but the deep strength of one who knows the truth and stands anyway. So ask yourself, do you want the comfort of illusions or the freedom of truth? Do you want to keep drowning in optimism or learn to breathe in darkness? Comment below. Do you believe pessimism can be a cure, or is it too heavy to bear? Subscribe if you want to keep unlearning the lies you were told about life. Share this with someone who insists positivity is the answer, and watch them recoil at the idea that darkness can heal. Because Schopenhauer's cure is not sweet, it is bitter, sharp, merciless. But like all true medicine, it works. If block 1 was the wound, block 2 is the scalpel. To understand Schopenhauer's dark cure, we must cut through the illusions humanity clings to most desperately: progress, success, religion, and hope. These illusions are not harmless. They are the chains that bind you tighter to the will. They make you chase shadows, blame yourself for failure, and perpetuate suffering under the mask of meaning. Schopenhauer's pessimism dismantles them one by one, leaving you standing in the stark light of truth. First, the illusion of progress. The modern world worships progress like a god. We are told that life is getting better, that humanity is moving forward, that technology and politics and economics are building paradise just around the corner. But Schopenhauer saw the fraud. He said life is not a straight line toward improvement. It is a cycle of suffering repeating endlessly. For every disease cured, a new one emerges. For every injustice conquered, another rises. For every comfort created, new desires torment us. Progress does not free us from the will. It makes the will stronger by giving it more objects to crave. And yet the herd clings to this illusion, because without it, they would see the emptiness of their striving. Then, the illusion of success. We are told from childhood that success will save us. Get the degree, the job, the money, the house, the recognition, and you will finally be happy. But success, Schopenhauer said, is a trick of the will. When you achieve it, the joy fades quickly. The hunger returns, sharper than before. You are not satisfied. You are emptier. Because now you know that what you chased was not the cure, but the bait. And so you run again, chasing higher success, more wealth, more status, until exhaustion breaks you. Optimism tells you to keep climbing. Pessimism tells you the ladder has no top. The climb itself is the trap. Next, the illusion of religion. Schopenhauer was ruthless here. He saw religion as the grandest machinery of optimism, promising salvation, promising eternal joy, promising meaning in suffering. But behind it, he said, was the same will, exploiting fear and hope to keep people obedient. Religion tells you to accept suffering now because paradise awaits later. But later never comes. Later is the cruelest word in the human vocabulary. Pessimism exposes this lie, not to mock faith, but to free you from waiting for what will never arrive. Heaven is the bait that keeps you kneeling. And finally, the illusion of hope itself. Hope is perhaps the most intoxicating drug humanity has ever swallowed. It whispers, "Tomorrow will be better." It keeps slaves working, soldiers fighting, lovers waiting, citizens obeying. But Schopenhauer called hope the prolongation of torment. To hope is to live in the future, in fantasies that postpone living. Hope keeps you chained to what does not exist. And so, pessimism kills hope. Not because it despises life, but because it wants you to live in reality. Without hope, you stop waiting. You stop kneeling. You stop dreaming of a tomorrow that will never come. and you face today with clarity. And here is the paradox. When you kill these illusions, you do not collapse into despair, you awaken. The burden of false promises lifts. You stop blaming yourself for not being happy, because you see that happiness was never guaranteed. You stop envying others, because you see their joy is as fragile as yours. You stop fearing failure, because success itself is exposed as empty. Pessimism frees you from the weight of expectations that optimism nailed to your back. But how do people respond to this cure? With hostility. They cling to their illusions like addicts clutching their drugs. Tell someone that progress is a myth, and they will call you cynical. Tell them success is empty, and they will call you bitter. Tell them religion is bait, and they will call you evil. Tell them hope is poison, and they will call you insane. Why? Because they need illusions to survive. They cannot imagine life without them. They love their chains, they defend their lies, and they hate the one who tears them away. This is why Schopenhauer lived in obscurity, dismissed as a pessimist while others were celebrated for their optimism. But history has turned. Now, in a world collapsing under false promises, his voice rises like a grim prophecy fulfilled. Anxiety, depression, emptiness, these are not anomalies. They are the cost of optimism. They are the screams of a species addicted to lies. And Schopenhauer's cure is the bitter antidote. Think of it like medicine. Sweet lies soothe you, but they make you sicker. Bitter truths taste harsh, but they cleanse you. Schopenhauer's pessimism is bitter medicine. It hurts when it touches your tongue, but once swallowed, it clears the infection of illusions, and with clarity comes strength, not joy, but resilience, not comfort, but freedom. So what do you prefer? The sweetness of lies or the bitterness of truth? Do you want to keep climbing the ladder that leads nowhere, keep waiting for the tomorrow that never comes, keep kneeling for salvation that never arrives? Or do you want to stand finally in the darkness and breathe air unpoisoned by hope? Comment below, what illusion do you think enslaves people the most? Progress, success, religion, or hope? Subscribe if you want more of the bitter truths that optimism hides from you. Share this with someone drowning in positive vibes, and watch how quickly they recoil when told their hope is poison. Because Schopenhauer's pessimism is not despair, it is clarity. And clarity, no matter how dark, is the beginning of freedom. You have seen the wound. You have felt the scalpel. Now comes the strange part of Schopenhauer's cure, the survival guide. Because once you strip away illusions, once you kill hope, once you accept that the will rules all life with endless suffering, what remains? Do you collapse into despair? Do you give up? Or is there a way to live inside the tragedy, without illusions, without hope, and yet without despair? Schopenhauer's answer was yes. And his answer is why pessimism does not kill, it saves. He pointed toward 3 escapes from the will, 3 temporary liberations from the hunger that torments us: art, compassion, and asceticism. None of them erase suffering. None of them promise eternal happiness. They are not heaven, not salvation, not optimism in disguise. They are brief suspensions of torment, small windows of clarity, fleeting moments of peace. But in a world of endless hunger, those moments are medicine. They are the dark cure. Art was his first escape. Music, painting, poetry, philosophy, these are not decorations. They are sanctuaries from the will. When you are absorbed in a work of art, you stop striving, stop desiring, stop hungering. You forget yourself. For a moment, you are no longer a puppet of the will. You are pure perception. That is why music for Schopenhauer was the highest art, because it did not represent the will. It was the will speaking directly, stripped of illusion. And when you listen deeply, you feel its structure without being enslaved by it. Art does not solve suffering, but it gives you breathing room. It allows you to step outside the wheel, if only for a few minutes. The second escape was compassion. At first, This may sound strange. How can compassion, in a world of endless suffering, offer relief? Schopenhauer's answer: because compassion breaks the illusion of separation. Normally, the will enslaves each of us to our private hunger, our personal striving. But when you see another suffer and feel it as your own, you momentarily transcend the prison of individuality. You recognize that the will torments everyone, and in that recognition, your ego dissolves. To act with compassion is not to erase suffering, but to stop multiplying it with cruelty, with indifference, with egoism. Compassion is rebellion against the will's cruelty. And then comes the most radical escape: asceticism. Schopenhauer admired the saints and mystics who renounced desire, who turned away from pleasure, ambition, reproduction. For him, asceticism was the closest thing to true freedom, an attempt to silence the will itself, not by killing the body, but by starving desire. He saw this in Buddhist monks, in Christian mystics, in individuals who chose solitude over striving. Most cannot endure this path. It is too severe. But for those who can, it is the ultimate refusal of the will. It is the closest humanity comes to liberation. Notice the pattern. Schopenhauer's cure is not optimism. It does not deny suffering. It does not promise paradise. It does not pretend progress will save us. It faces the wound, accepts it, and then prescribes small doses of relief, beauty, compassion, renunciation. It is not a cure for life itself, because life is the disease. It is a cure for illusions, and illusions are what make the disease unbearable. And here is the paradox. By accepting pessimism, you become stronger, calmer, more resilient than the optimists who mock you. Because the optimist is crushed every time reality breaks their dreams. The pessimist is not. The pessimist expects suffering, and so is never surprised by it. The pessimist expects hunger, and so is grateful for moments of peace. The pessimist expects nothing, and so is never betrayed. Pessimism is not despair. It is armor. Look at the world today. A culture obsessed with positivity is collapsing under anxiety. A generation told to dream big is drowning in disappointment. A civilization addicted to hope is choking on despair. And in the ruins, Schopenhauer's voice returns. Pessimism is the cure, not because it erases pain, but because it makes pain bearable. Not because it offers heaven, but because it frees you from hell disguised as hope. And so the question comes to you. Will you keep swallowing the poison of optimism, expecting life to be what it cannot be? Or will you take the bitter medicine, accept pessimism, and finally stop tormenting yourself with impossible expectations? Because once you do, you will see the world differently. Every moment of relief becomes precious. Every silence of suffering becomes sacred. Every escape, through art, through compassion, through renunciation, becomes enough. Schopenhauer's cure is not easy. It will make you hated. People addicted to hope will call you negative, toxic, dangerous. They will say you spread darkness. But remember, their hope is the drug killing them. Their optimism is the lie that chains them. And your pessimism, though dark, is the truth that frees you. Better to be hated for truth than loved for lies. Better to live with clarity than drown in illusions. So comment below. Do you think you could live without hope, or would you collapse without its sugar? Subscribe if you are ready to keep taking the bitter medicine of philosophy. Share this with someone who insists optimism is strength, and watch how quickly they panic when told that pessimism might save their life. Because Schopenhauer's cure is not sweet, not popular, not easy, but it is real. And in a world drowning in illusions, reality, however dark, is the only salvation.